Okay, hello team. This is our video instruction for the latest update to the coding scheme, version 3.0. I think this might be the set that we'll work with going into the full scope of results from the corpus search. But again, like last time, we'll see how it goes as people are working through this sample of 50. I just wanted to walk you through the new index, point out some of the changes, explain some of the differences, and then take you to the spreadsheet just to show you what everything will look like in the sample that I'm sending out to you. So in this email where you got this video, you should have a copy of this coding scheme, the Excel spreadsheet sample of 50, and then this video, which you would have seen because you clicked on it and are watching it now. So at the top here, I just have listed what the exact query terms are in the corpus right now. So we have bribe with all variations of bribe. And then for some reason, that expression in the corpus didn't capture bribing. And so I just inserted that separately as its own to get the combined instances of both bribing and all other variations of bribe. The first set of categories are describing the sense of object, or what is the nature of the thing being offered as a bribe. These are pretty much the same. You have your monetary, your political, and your generic. The differences between those three categories are more significant than the differences between the subcategories. So I just want to emphasize that it's most important that you get the correct sense of object, whether it's monetary, political, or generic. And then once we get in between, monetary direct or indirect, support versus office, those things, those are still important, but the difference between those two is not as disruptive as the difference between, again, the header categories. I have put in bold everything that is new, so you can see some of the new language or things that I try to simplify or give better descriptions to as parameters for your coding. So you'll see those throughout here. One big thing to notice is there's no longer an undetermined category. I have decided, with the advice of Brett, to just assume that in the label of other, so we don't have confusion between undetermined and the generic categories. So if you think you don't have enough information in the concordance line to set any distinctive sense, then just mark it as other, because anything that's going to be other isn't really helpful or insightful to our analysis. At least that's how we see it right now. So again, I've just tried to remove some of the language so that I'm not assuming things about the purpose of the bribe or the motivations or things like that. And I've really changed the description for political support and political office, because I think last time we were running into some instances where the idea of was money involved or the idea of was politics involved were kind of getting tangled up with each other. And so you'll see in the next section, the sense of place, the political context is more addressed. And here I'm just super focusing on the object of the bribe. Was that political support? Was it influence or an endorsement or other functional political actions that translate into social capital but not financial gain, like favorable taxes. So if part of the bribe was a change to the tax code, that would be more of monetary indirect than political support. And then political office is just rewarding or giving appointment to public office or ensuring elected positions. And again, this is emphasizing the power and not like potential income, like, oh, you've got a job with us, like you have secure future income, because that would be, again, more like monetary indirect or direct, depending on the source. Okay, let me just take a pause real quick. All right, I'm sure you love the bird singing in the background as much as I do, but just in case that's annoying to you, the bird has been quieted. Okay, so then looking at the generic, so we covered the political senses. The generic abstract I have changed to generic action, so it's still GA, but just trying to emphasize that this isn't so abstract that we don't know what it means, but it's something that is specific and identifiable, but it's a favor, a commitment, or a promise, either a verbal statement or a physical act, something that is still used as a bribe, but that thing isn't a tangible physical object necessarily, like a gift, present, or reward. So yeah, hopefully that clarifies a little bit those original senses that we've developed. And now we have a whole nother list of things to look at when coding these concordant signs. So the second sense is that of place. What is the nature of the setting for those involved in the bribery? You have the setting of law or politics, the setting of institution or business, and interpersonal relationships. Now, the law and politics setting, that kind of covers the problem that we had with a source like, for example, using money as a bribe to obtain votes. That was a question that came up in one of the meetings. Now, previously we didn't have a way of describing all the things that are going on in the meaning of that source. But now we can say, okay, it's a monetary bribe, it's a monetary direct object for the bribe, but it's taking place in politics, right? It's trying to secure votes. So it's in a political context. So now we can describe that while also recognizing what the thing is that's being used as the bribe and where or in what context the bribe is taking place. The institutional or business aspect, this is just bribery in the context of schools or companies, organized groups, charities, anything that's institutional, or a corporation or a business, but that is excluding legal or political entanglements like the category above. So again, if it involves, and I'm just pulling examples kind of out of my hat right now. I didn't have time to go through and find specific examples for every new sense, but I think these are, I think we're at a place where we can work pretty well without examples, but I apologize if it probably would have been easier if I had examples. But for example, if it's talking about the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, again, that's a modern institution, but that would be an institution, but that's the legal or political context. And so you would mark it as LP instead of IB. And then just interpersonal relationships, if it's taking place between two people, hey, I'm a student bribing my teacher, or a brother bribing my sister, don't rat me out or give me an A, things like that. Anything that's happening between people but it's excluding larger entities, then that would be IR. And then again, you have the same other option if it's too bare, it's too broad and general and not specific enough, or doesn't give you enough information to clarify what the meaning actually is for the sense of place. Third, this is kind of really different, the sense of perception. I want to try to get at how is the bribe perceived in the context of the founding era source itself. So not what is your perception, but what is the perception of the author or the actors in the source itself. So does it seem like the object of the bribe or the place where the bribery is taking place is against the law? About the example of using money as a bribe to obtain votes. Does that seem, based on the source, if it's illegal? Or does the bribe seem to be intended as a hidden or a deceptive thing? Is there any indication that it's supposed to be kept private, or that knowledge of the bribe is meant to be kept from other people? And then last, does it seem like it's meant to be, not that the bribe is meant to be, but the bribe is perceived as being wrong? Is it viewed as immoral or sinful? And not because of any legal ramifications, but just because it's bad to do bribery. And I don't know how much overlap there will be between all those things, but I'll add in, you can mark 2 or 3 of the senses of perception. So it could be I and H and W. So I'll add a line in here for that. And then last we have the giver or recipient angle. So I think in trying to understand what a bribe is, it might be necessary to understand who is offering the bribe and who is receiving the bribe, but I don't know if that's going to matter. So I just want you to note if the source you're looking at is talking about the giver or the receiver, or both, or neither, using GR, or not applicable. I think that will tell us if all of the sources or most of the sources are talking about the giver or the receiver, then it might be imperative to, okay, we need to look at what is it about the receiver that keeps coming up in these instances of bribery. So there you go. Hopefully that clearly kind of expounds what I'm giving you here in the coding scheme. Again, I've tried to make the language precise enough to be helpful. Everything that you see there is copied over onto the query tab on the spreadsheet. It doesn't look as clean, but it's all here. Again, you have the actual URL for the corpus search, so you can refer to that when you're going through the concordance lines. Under the results tab, you have all the metadata and the context. Anyway, you've seen this now. And then I've added a column for your notes again, added a column for sense of object, for sense of place, sense of perception, and then the giver or recipient. So yeah, there you go. I talked about this in the meeting on Saturday, but not the meeting on Thursday. Please try to have this to me by Wednesday so that I can look at the results and have stuff to talk about in my meeting with Brett to make sure that we're ready to go forward in terms of inter-rater reliability and having an extensive enough coding index to move on to the full data set. So thank you again. I really appreciate you guys. I've been watching a lot of Hamilton recently, and yeah, definitely enjoying looking through these writings from the founding era and trying to understand what bribery meant then and what it will mean for us now with the several impeachments that our country has seen. So I hope you have a good weekend and see you next week.